Alrighty, my friends. This is Josh and Jeannie Rubin from East West Healing. And we are thyroid specialists. We teach people how to use food to regulate their thyroid, or really thyroid hormone conversion, and overall health. Today we're going to be talking about Candida and hypothyroidism, maybe some of the myths, maybe some of the facts. But before we get started, we would love to go over a few different things. First off, don't forget to like our video and share our video. It not only helps others, but it helps us as well. Secondly, we offer a free 15-minute consult, and this is really a chance for you to get some of your questions answered and hear a little bit more our approach and maybe how we can kind of find that alignment and possibly work together in the future. There's no obligation, but I'm just saying it's a chance to really see what we do and how we do it and how it might really benefit you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 2 seconds here to put this in the comment section below so you can check that out. There you go. As well, lastly, we offer what's called the Thyroid Restoration audio series. And that's a 7-part audio series on how to heal your metabolism, aka adrenals and thyroid, with food. It's 7 parts. It's an audio series. It's incredible. We get a lot of great feedback on it. And it's kind of a great starting place, DIY, to really understand our approach. Because, you know, we put out a lot, whether it be on our site, on social media, and so a lot of people understand this, and a lot of people that are new or even that follow us sometimes get a little confused. But if you always come back to those audios and understand where we're coming from, a lot of the stuff that we're talking about will make a lot more sense. So if you haven't, subscribe to that by clicking on the link. But if you have, go back and listen to it again. That's the most important thing. Thirdly, we'd love to know where you are from watching this, whether you're listening to it live or on the playback. So go ahead and post down below where you're from. I think it's really interesting to see where people are from. We're getting people from Australia, New Zealand, India, Singapore, different places. It's just interesting to see how far we're reaching with this stuff, and the impact that it's having, you know. And lastly, I guess, and then we'll get started, is if you want to know about specific things in the future, let us know by posting in the comments. That's the most important thing, because we don't do this so we can hear ourselves speak. We do this so we can talk about the things that you guys want to learn about, right? That's pertaining to you or your clients, right? So that's the most important thing. So definitely please do that. So today we're talking about Candida and hypothyroidism. Now, this is big. This is big. I would say out of all the emails we get from people that are interested in talking, the most common are Candida and H. pylori. I hate talking about H. pylori. I'll admit it. I posted a bunch of posts on Instagram. You can check out our Instagram yesterday, Real Food Gangsters. I said it's probably the only time I'm going to talk about it. I felt there was a need to talk about it. So if you want to go learn more about that, go to our Instagram. But today we're going to talk about Candida. I don't mind talking about it that much. I just feel like it's been so misunderstood, and people are going down the wrong path when they're trying to eradicate it, right? We need to kill Candida, and people spend their whole entire healing journey trying to kill it.
And the reason it's so important is because what's happening is people are coming up worse in the end. So I think that it is an important conversation. It is something that a lot of people struggle with because it's something that we all have. It's actually part of our body, part of our gut flora.
You know, sorry. So years ago, like many years ago, you know, I would say probably even before I met Jeannie, I was into the whole fungal diet, Doug Kaufman.
We've all been there.
All been there. And, you know, over that time, we're doing labs and nutrition with people. And the one thing that really made me, or maybe us, I don't know, I could be speaking for Jeannie, kind of move and research it a little bit more was we were working with people that were self-diagnosing based on symptoms, right? I have cravings. I have this, I have that, and I have a fungal infection. And they never really did any labs. So they're really chasing symptoms, which is dangerous, because 99% of the time with these people, I'd say, let's get a lab done just to see, and they didn't have it.
considering the symptoms for Candida are
Right.
so broad. I mean,
So broad. They're the
just
symptoms for everything.
everything.
Symptoms for blood sugar regulation. They mimic the symptoms of hypothyroidism, which we'll talk about. So, you have to think about that. And then we work with people that did have it. And then they do the Candida diet, right? And they'd be starving. And they feel like they'd be limiting all the things in life that they like, right? And the foods that they need. And we do the lab again, they still have Candida. Why? Because it's part of our GI system. We live symbiotically with it. And I forget the research. I think it's anywhere between 40 and 60% of the GI system is inhabited with Candida or, fungus, right? Fungus is actually the first and oldest living organism in the world. On this planet. You can't kill it. If you kill it, you will die. That's the bottom line. It's about living in a way and eating in a way to keep it at bay and keep it comfortable and nourished and happy, right?
But I do want to say that I think a lot of people do experience some relief in applying some of the protocols that are designed to quote unquote kill Candida, because again, what you're being shown is the imbalances in the system with breakdown of foods, the ability to be able to tolerate certain foods such as sugar, because of its effect on your blood sugar based on where you are physiologically, because not necessarily because of the Candida, but because of how it affects the system. So,
and if you think about it from our perspective, right? Our goal is to teach people how to use food within our food strategy, which is eat metabolic foods, create individualized food frequency, regulate grams, ratios, and calories to create health within the system so the body can create health. I talked about this yesterday on a bunch of posts I did on oxalate diet. If you try to do a diet to eat a certain way, you're segmentalizing the body. And if you look at all these diets, even the oxalate diet, and you come back to what it's trying to do, it's trying to eliminate non-digestible foods. It's trying to eliminate foods that are inflammatory to the system, right? And when we come back to it, we're really not, in our approach, we're not chasing symptoms. We're chasing health. And if you chase symptoms, the end result of chasing symptoms is chasing symptoms. It never ends, right? So what we're trying to do is say, oh, great, you have Candida. Let's look at your life. Let's look at your food. Let's try to put the pieces together that say, this life that I'm living creates health. The food that I'm eating creates health. And from there, the body is going to create balance, right? You never go after Candida head on because you're not going to win, right? So let's just briefly talk about some of the symptoms. Now, of course, the most common are like cravings, fatigue, depression, bloating, gas, anxiety, low libido, brain fog, etc. Like Jeannie said, these are broad. It's all the symptoms of stress, being in a stress state, all the symptoms of eating non-metabolic, undigestible food. It's the symptoms of chronic blood sugar dysregulation.
It's the symptoms of your body being in a chronic state of compensation.
Right.
Things are out of balance. And again, when you experience symptoms, because they've been out of balance for a very long time. It's not just happening.
And the reason I'm saying that is because I know there's a lot of people out there who teach this. You should never diagnose yourself, number one, and diagnose yourself off symptoms. It's a no-no. Now, if you're running around with thrush, right, which is a sign of an immune system suppression because you have secretory IgA in your mouth, or if you're running around with chronic yeast infections, not just one chronic, you're running around with jock-ish or fungus on your toes, now we know that you do have the possibility of an overgrowth. It's more systemic. It's further from the gut. It's more chronic. Then we say, okay, maybe we could diagnose off symptoms, but we still need to do a lab. So the bottom line is this. If you really want to know you have a Candida overgrowth, the safest way is to do a lab. That is the safest. Not the spit test, not anything else. Do a lab. Because everything else is just creating an illusion of what possibly could be there. Okay? Now, if we really want to break it down, think about it. We have chronic stresses in our life, which is not meeting your metabolic needs, right? Which is the demands that are coming in, like being placed on the body, exceed what the body can handle. That's a stress. It's a physiological reaction in the body, right? It could be overworking. It could be not taking enough time out to breathe. It could be overtraining. It could be many things, right? That stimulates a reaction in the body. What happens, our body compensates with excess, many things, but one of them being cortisol. What does cortisol do? It affects thyroid hormone production. It affects thyroid hormone conversion. It increases the conversion to reverse T3, so it binds up thyroid receptor cells. It affects how our liver detoxifies estrogen. What does it do? It creates an immune suppressive state, right? Not only hypothyroidism, but an immune suppressive state. What does that mean? You are much more susceptible to having a Candida overgrowth. It's that simple. I mean, we could literally end it right now and say it's that simple. That right there is the most powerful thing. Is it more complex? Sure, right? Now,
but does it really need to be?
It doesn't need to be. But as humans, we love things to be complex because we want to solve problems, right? And find a solution. We find that solution, we feel good, we create another problem. That's just how it goes, right? Because we can't just be happy where things are. We have to do that. It doesn't have to be that complicated. Now, what are some of the possibilities of how we get it? Because, of course, everyone's sitting there going, please, like seriously.
But I think when we talk about the possibilities, they're all essentially stresses, you know.
But don't run with these possibilities and go, I was pregnant, I have a Candida infection, I need to go on all these herbs and spend so much money and go, here's my red tag, I have Candida, so I'm special. No, that's not what you need to do. What you need to do is just understand that everything starts from stress.
Yeah.
Everything, like I just talked about, which is that physiological reaction. So if we look at it, here are some of the possibilities. And the first and the most important is stress's impact, right? A stressor in our life, and it really comes down to we are not meeting our body's needs.
Right.
The demands being placed on the organism exceed what the organism can handle. Organism being you.
And we've talked about this before. It can be felt or not felt. You
Right.
may or may not feel it. So you don't know that it's happening until you do. Until, again, the whole body begins to decompensate. These aren't things that you've heard us say. This is not the first time you've heard us say something.
Probably like the 3,925,000.
Because it's all based on that.
Yeah.
We all know that, again, the whole quote, stress kills. Well, essentially that's what we're starting to see these days, aren't we? So, again, it is simple, but it's also very important. Because
so it's stress's effect on our blood sugar, which pushes us into this immune suppressed state. And you could say this is like the process of like autoimmune disease, the process of Hashimoto's, right? This is the process. Unwind it and you will heal.
Well, we know that cortisol is essentially the thing that breaks down our greatest line of defense. So if we're in a chronic state of stress, our greatest line of defense is being compromised, which again, as Josh said earlier, is what's exposing you. It's leaving you more vulnerable to overgrowth, being infected by different pathogens.
Right.
Again, we're an open tube from mouth to anus. So if you are compromised in any point
clinched.
of that.
What's up, Tim?
I knew that was going to be a tough one for you to get through.
Just clinched.
Think about that, though, again, and if your body is in a compromised state, you are completely exposed.
That's why you have secretory IgA in your gut and your mouth, right? It's your first line of defense. It's part of your immune system.
Yes.
The second would be diabetes, and this is diagnosed diabetes, right? Because of abnormal blood sugar fluctuations, which is called dysglycemia, high-low, right? What does that cause? That causes, in a nutshell, keep it simple, immunosuppression, right? And if you think about it, what's our approach? It's about regulating blood sugar. So right now, with our approach alone, we're tackling number 1 and 2 without even focusing on the diagnosis, right? Number 3, pregnancy. Now, I'm not saying every single person that gets pregnant. Yep. But I'm saying some people, right? We always have to look at the person, right? We always have to say, who is this person? How did they get there? What was their life like? What was their history? Where did they come from? Their parents. So when people say a diet high in sugar can cause a Candida infection, sure, if you wake up and you have donuts and coffee with sugar, and then for a snack you have a candy bar, and then for lunch you have Taco Bell, and then for a snack you have, I don't even know. So you're getting such a diet that's high in carbs, so low in protein, and so high in fat. This dysglycemia can, of course, lead to Candida. That's another example. But getting off the topic, pregnancy can, because of those hormonal changes and fluctuations, lead towards that immunosuppressive state, which can cause a Candida overgrowth. What were you going to say?
I was going to say that, we talk a lot about sugar, and obviously we need carbohydrates to heal. So just touching on what Josh was saying about donuts and these types of carbohydrate versus that type of carbohydrate, yes, they both have very different effects on the body. But regardless, if you eat a banana and you're somebody who's in a compromised state, it's going to have a negative effect on you. You need to have part of that banana, again, alongside the proper proteins and fats. So again, we're not promoting a high carbohydrate or saying, that this sugar's bad, good, but I think we have to, again, also consider that eating a fruit alone or eating a starchy vegetable that we would recommend alone is not the goal either.
Right.
So
the fourth is what we just talked about, eating a diet high in sugar. So I mean like the standard American diet, right? That's super, 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 super carb dominant. So in a sense, it's like you're eating carbs by itself, right? And of highly processed foods, like what we call the crap American diet, conventional and refined. Conventional and refined. I forget what the A stands for, and then processed foods, artificial. So conventional, refined, artificial processed foods. The fifth would be, of course, overtaking antibiotics.
This is a big one.
Now, I'm not saying once again that just because you do, you're going to, right? You just make yourself more susceptible because you're in an immune state. Now, does our society overuse antibiotics? 100%. Right? How much per year? I don't know. I think someone could honestly get through the year, maybe with, like, if they had to because of what's going on in their life, anywhere from like 1 to 3, maybe 4 times a year, I think would be okay. I'm not advocating. I'm just saying without really getting Candida. If you're on it, like these people that are on it for years or a year at a time, then you're definitely at risk. But once again, still do that lab to see what's going on. And at the same time, in 18 years, I've never seen someone eradicate Candida and go, I'm so much better. I'm so much better. It doesn't work like that.
Maybe for a little while, but not sustainable.
The last is, of course, other medications can contribute or lead you there, such as the birth control pill is a huge one. There's a great book out there by Dr. Grant called The Bitter Pill, I think it's called. It's a good book. And corticosteroids, right? Everyone's hoopla on corticosteroids because they have pain in their knee or pain in their shoulder, and they think it's a solution. It's not. It's a Band-Aid, and you're suppressing your hyperstimulated adrenals, and then you actually suppress them, so you make yourself more susceptible to things like Candida being overgrowth, right? So those are the things, but in a sense, Candida is not an illness. It's not an illness. It's the sign of being in an immune suppressed state. And that's the most important thing that you need to focus on when you think about Candida, right? I'm not ill. I'm just in an immune suppressed state, right? Now, how do most people try to kill it? This is the most. Now, I know a lot of people out there that say Candida feeds on sugar. Well, it does. It thrives on sugar. That's how it survives, just like you feed on food. So if I locked you in a room and said, you have no food for the next week, what would you do? You would try to do everything you could to find your way out of there. And that's what Candida does. When you starve it, right? It tries to extend its filaments, go into different areas of the body to try to find sugar, right? And of course, when we're eating too much sugar, it can overthrive it, just like if you overfeed a human, they can become overnourished. It's the exact same thing. But at the same time, Candida likes to feed on estrogen. That's another huge one, as well as unsaturated fats, because they have estrogen-like qualities, right? So when we're in this hypothyroid state, we increase the recirculation of estrogen, which of course perpetuates that Candida overgrowth. So if you think about it, what's the conventional way of killing Candida?
Cutting out sugar.
Cutting out sugar, right? What do? We cut out fruits because fruits are going to kill us, right? We cut out roots. We cut out pastas. We cut out everything with sugar in it. Mm-hmm. And left, we're eating proteins, fats, and vegetables, right? But we're not cows, right? So the funny thing is, if you starve the body of sugar, what are you doing? No one's answering. You are increasing the amount of cortisol. You're throwing your body into this immune suppressed state. You're blocking thyroid hormone conversion. And you're creating a hypothyroid environment, right? So what happens? It's a vicious circle. It just keeps going and going. and you're damaging your metabolism at the same time. Helen Habel says, "Oh my God, that is true."
And that's why, again, what we were saying earlier is that so many people are coming up worse in the end because they're destroying their thyroid at the sake of trying to kill Candida. So both, it's not working.
You're suppressing. Remember, your cells are the conductors of your systems, all your tissues. Berta Barnes said you have 1 trillion cells in your body, and thyroid hormone affects every single one of them. Every single one, right? So what happens? Now we're in an autoimmune state. Why is autoimmune disease so prevalent in our society these days? Because everyone's afraid of fruit. And then the fruit is the devil. It's not, right? It's eating it with the right types of protein that creates balance in our system, right? And going slowly so our body can process, not just cutting something out and saying it's bad and eating lettuce when lettuce is high in cellulose and non-digestible. Makes no sense, and it does nothing.
In a system that's already compromised.
In a system that's already compromised, right?
So, we already talked about cortisol on digestion and whatnot. So again, we're seeing how that vicious cycle perpetuates over and over and over and over again without getting in there and shutting that down by fueling the body properly and cutting that cortisol out. Not necessarily cutting it out, but weakening the effect.
So when you're in this hypometabolic state or hypothyroid state, your first line of defense against Candida, which is called secretory IgA, it's in your mouth, it's in your gut, it's in your colon, right? It's in specific parts of your body. That's why when you get thrush, it's an immune system suppression or SIGA suppression in your mouth. It's a little bit easier to fix, though. Same thing when women get yeast infections. Gut's a little bit more challenging, but your first line of defense is decreased. We used to do gut labs on a lot of people back in the day when needed, and it used to test secretory IgA. I think, let's just say we did 100 labs. Could have been more, could have been less, I don't know. I would say I never came across anyone with normal amounts of SIGA in their body. Never, right? We live in a suppressed immune state because of we are so afraid of carbs or we overeat carbs, right? We never find that balance. Namaste. And that's what this is all about. So what can cause this is, of course, the inability to detoxify estrogen, that increase in cortisol, not regulating your blood sugar or cutting out carbs, as well as a diet that's high in unsaturated fats, right? Eating a diet high in nuts and seed oils, fatty fish, all these things are highly immune suppressive, and they can easily create that state for Candida overgrowth. In excess. Yeah. Right. So hopefully at this point it's kind of making sense. Of course, we could go on and talk about and reiterate things of how it affects the gut. We talked about, I'm just looking at our notes here. We talked about, does sugar cause Candida? It doesn't, right? The inability to regulate our blood sugar is what leads to Candida. And of course you're going to have gut issues, right? Of course you're going to have gut issues when you have Candida. Candida releases different solutions, A, to keep it happy, and B, when it's pissed off, right? So you're going to get that effect of that. You're going to feel fatigued. You're going to feel a little bit drunk or hungover in the morning, right? Because of this Candida overgrowth. But remember, that's Candida's way of compensating to thrive, just like you compensate to thrive, right? But the more we regulate our blood sugar and boost up our immune system and allow our liver to detoxify estrogen and create normalcy and harmony in the body, that's when we begin to see our symptoms fade away over time, right? If you have questions when we're going through this, feel free to definitely chime in and put your questions.
I think
we
Bob
do.
and Nancy Shackelford
has a question. So you're saying women taking estrogen during menopause are causing Candida? Well, here's the thing. I'll give you my approach in this. Maybe Jeannie can shed a little bit light. First of all, it's hard to say because everyone needs to do a lab, right? We need to know in menopause if someone actually needs it. A lot of women are put on it. They're put on progesterone. They're put on estrogen and say, take it just because you're in menopause. The funny thing is a lot of women still produce estrogen in their body when they're in menopause. They just don't produce enough, right? They're producing it in their adrenals. It's been shown through stress and aging in menopause that your progesterone levels go down to about 0. So a lot of the times women need to be supported with progesterone, not synthetic from horse's urine, but progesterone from Dr. John Lee or Ray Peat. Whether or not they need estrogen, that's
determined by a lab, and whether or not your hormone levels are very low.
Yeah.
Some women can thrive
with
with a
small
combination
benefits.
of small levels of estrogen and progesterone combination.
But here's the thing. If you're not creating a nutritional foundation to allow your body to use that efficiently, yes, I do believe that taking it without that foundation can easily make you more susceptible, because estrogen, now it's tough because in excess it can create these imbalances. That's what we're talking about.
Now, don't hear that estrogen
We're not
is
saying
bad, because
estrogen's
it's
bad.
not.
We're not saying estrogen causes it. We're saying the inability to recirculate it is what the problem is. But if you're taking it and it's building up in your tissues, that can be a problem as well. Do I believe someone should just be on estrogen alone in menopause? No.
Never.
100%. Never. No, and that can easily push you into a hypothyroid state, make you gain weight, etc., and push you into this kind of place where you can easily get yeast overgrowth and get these Candida-like symptoms. 100%.
Anytime you're working with hormones of any kind, we do recommend that there is something foundationally set to help your body utilize those hormones more successfully.
Yeah. Another question was, I use bioidentical progesterone, but yeast infection always there. Like we said, a supplement won't fix it, right? You have to have that nutritional foundation.
And it's probably not the progesterone that's causing the yeast infections. It's, again, the imbalance and maybe why you need that progesterone, which, again, because cortisol and progesterone share the same receptor sites, your body's going to prioritize what's happening there. So if there's a deficiency there, it could be showing you something that's happening in your stress system that isn't being addressed with your nutrition.
The biggest thing is that food foundation. Right?
Blood sugar regulation.
So Helen's asking us, download that Restoration Thyroid series. The link's in below. You can see it. It's going to talk about our foods. It's going to talk about frequency. And that is the beginning step of how to tap into your autonomic nervous system to regulate your blood sugar and take the burden off the adrenals. But at the same time, you have to begin to look at your life and say, am I feeling or am I not feeling? Where my stresses are coming from? Mm-hmm. So those two things can easily regulate that over time, so you can get the benefits of the hormone you take in and still clear yourself of all these yeast infections that you're getting. That's the most important thing. Mm-hmm. Okay? So what's the solution? That's the biggest thing, right? Because we've just talked about a lot. You can do a lot more research. If you search us online, Candida, East West Healing, we have a lot of stuff out there. We have a lot of Instagram posts and Facebook posts on Candida, so definitely check them out, and YouTube's as well. So what's the solution? Well, it's actually simple. It just takes a lot of time. The first is balanced blood sugar. That's the most important thing, right? And it sounds easy, and it somewhat is, but like we just said, you need metabolic foods, and you need to, over time, create a frequency that works for your body, that puts fuel in the fire, that reduces stress within the system. But you have to know where your stresses are coming from, so you can work on those stressors, whether it's in your life, whether it's from overtraining, whether it's from not doing anything, whether it's emotional, right? So you can begin to decrease that excitement in the body with food, but then follow it up with decreasing the excitement of the stressor that's putting the stress on the body, right? We talk a lot about this in our Restoration Thyroid audio series, Helen. You just asked about metabolic foods. So please download that, because a lot of the questions...
A lot of this will be highlighted for you there.
Yeah.
For sure.
We'll answer your question in a second, Courtney Marie. The second is, try to eat a diet high in foods and vitamin A. Now, we're not talking plant source vitamin A. We're not talking that. We're talking animal source, like meats.
Liver, eggs,
dairy. Especially liver if you can. Vitamin A not only helps our cells produce energy, which creates a platform for healing, but it's a precursor to progesterone, so in a sense, vitamin A is very anti-estrogenic, right? So that's really...
It's actually required in that conversion, along with thyroid hormone, to all of your protective steroidal hormones.
Right. So I would say utilize more meats, but utilize eggs, of course. But the main one that most people don't use and they can't use is liver, and it's sometimes the missing link. Whether it's chicken or beef, I don't care. A lot of people ask about desiccated liver pills. I personally have never seen them work.
I don't see the same effect that we see when somebody's actually willing to explore eating liver.
Liver pate, you can freeze it and swallow it, whatever you want to do. But we've seen the most benefit when it comes to skin issues, leukoplakia, thrush,
and it can kind of, in
dandruff.
a way, take place of all of the 5,000 supplements you may be taking right now, or that we see a lot of people taking on a regular basis.
Right. The third is eating a raw carrot 1 to 2 times a day, right? So the raw carrot contains a fiber. Yes, it includes vitamin A. That's what we say, 1 to 2 raw carrots. Not the little baby bleach carrots, a real carrot from the ground. I don't care if you slice it, dice it, or just eat it like a bunny. That's the most important thing. Why? It's a supplement. It's not considered food. You eat it with a meal. Let's say you had some liver and some fruit. Let's say you had some fish and some fruit and some roots, whatever. You have the carrot with it. Carrot acts like activated charcoal. We can't digest the fiber. The fiber absorbs endotoxins and recirculating estrogen to help us sweep up the system. So over time, it's just like an added aid to clean the system to help that prevention of the recirculation.
And I just want to add, just to repeat what Josh said, because I think it's really important, it is used as a supplement. And so if you are going to do a raw carrot, again, your best time to do it is maybe your second or third meal.
Yeah.
Because you've got energy coming in, it can easily push you hypoglycemic because, again, it is high in sugar. Right. So make sure that you've got the complementary macros to help stabilize the effects of that raw carrot.
Helen was asking about liver, how much a week? I would say about 4 to 6 ounces, a week is a perfect amount for most women. They usually can handle a little more because you bleed every week. So you're getting the iron out of your system every month. So you're getting the iron out of your system. So about 4 to 6 ounces, maybe a little more is fine. I usually stick with the ounces more with the men because they can't eliminate it. The fourth is eliminate foods high in unsaturated fats, right? Unsaturated fats are anti-thyroid, they're immunosuppressive, and they have the same actions as estrogen in the system. And these are nuts and seed oils, and fish oil, and olive oil.
And this is especially true for people who have been practicing a diet high in unsaturated fats. Again, you can't avoid them. They're in everything, but it really is more the excess of them that create a lot of the suppression that we're talking about.
Courtney Marie asks, how many is liver caps okay? We just talked about that. We've never seen the same effect. Nicole Thomas, how you doing?
Hi,
says,
Nicole.
How many eggs a week? A client asked me that yesterday. What do you think?
It depends on your quality.
Yeah,
Obviously, the higher the quality, your eggs are coming from, they're free range and they're not getting genetically modified grains or they're feasting on things like that. I think that you can get away with about, did you say day or week?
I honestly think if it's a great clean egg, I don't really care.
Yeah, I think there's not really a limit, but
if
I think there's
if you don't know, I'd say about a
moderation,
maximum of like 4.
And everything within balance is really the goal. But I think, again, if you have a high quality, and a lot of people, because they are so limited to their different proteins, it could be a powerful tool.
Yeah. And lastly, sometimes if needed, I have to be honest, I've never really done it. Maybe done it once or twice, but is using oregano oil. But you need your food in place first, your frequencies, to increase that immune system and get it strong again, increase thyroid hormone conversion, decreasing cortisol, regulating your life, and then maybe you add in the oregano oil just for an added benefit, right? But it's not like the sole thing within your healing program, right? Mm-hmm. So hopefully that makes sense. Hope you can understand where we're coming from with our approach, how it works physiologically, because that's our approach, nutrition based on human physiology and how the body works.
Guys, real quick, no good, no bad, no right, no wrong. It's finding balance.
Yeah.
Omegas are in all your foods.
So a lot of people are asking questions about, listen to the audio series, how do we get our omegas? You're gonna get them in foods. You're gonna get them in eggs. You don't need an excessive amount because in excessive they're inflammatory. No fatty fish, not no fatty fish, but just more whitefish, which are less fatty fish, more shellfish, and maybe not just focusing just on salmon. Right? So it's about balance, because if you think about it, that's where everyone's eating, and that's what's causing all the problems. So if you just do the opposite, we heal. Right? So we actually have to run. If you have more questions, please, please, please post them below. We will definitely get to them. We always do. Please post them below. I know we have to get out of here really quickly, but we have a lot going on. So post your questions below. We will be back here next week, 12 p.m. Pacific Coast time. We appreciate every one of you. Have a good one.
Bye, guys.